4 months earlier, Kanye West had humiliated her on live television. Millions had watched as he interrupted her acceptance speech, told the world Beyoncé deserved her award instead. Taylor Swift was 19 years old, and it was the most embarrassing moment of her life. Now it was January 30, 2010. Taylor was 20 years old, sitting in the Staples Center at the Grammy Awards, and she was about to make history. When they announced Album of the Year Fearless, Taylor Swift, she became the youngest person to ever win that award, 4 months after being humiliated. 4 months after being told she didn't deserve her success. She proved everyone wrong, and she made history doing it. September 13, 2009. The MTV Video Music Awards at Radio City Music Hall in New York. Taylor Swift was 19 years old, wearing a sparkly silver dress, and she'd just won Best Female Video for You Belong With Me. It was her first VMA ever. She was excited, nervous, honored. This was a huge moment. MTV recognition meant she was crossing over from country to mainstream pop culture. She walked up on stage, took the microphone, and started her acceptance speech. "I always dreamed about what it would be like to maybe win one of these someday, but I never actually thought it would happen." That's when Kanye West walked on stage, took the microphone out of her hand, and said, "Yo, Taylor, I'm really happy for you. I'ma let you finish, but Beyoncé had one of the best videos of all time." The arena went silent. The cameras cut to Beyoncé in the audience, looking shocked and uncomfortable. Cut back to Taylor, standing on stage, holding her award, not knowing what to do. Kanye had just told millions of people watching live television that she didn't deserve to win, that someone else, specifically Beyoncé, should have won instead. Taylor stood there, frozen. She wanted to cry, but she couldn't, not with cameras on her. She tried to smile. It looked more like she was going to be sick. Kanye eventually walked off stage. The show cut to commercial, and Taylor never got to finish her speech. Her moment, her first VMA, her first big crossover award, had been taken from her, stolen on live television, in front of millions. Backstage, Taylor collapsed, started crying so hard she could barely breathe. Her mum Andrea held her while she sobbed. Everyone around them was uncomfortable, didn't know what to say. What do you say to a 19-year-old who just had the most humiliating moment of her life broadcast to the world? Later that night, Beyoncé, who'd won Video of the Year, called Taylor back on stage during her own acceptance speech and gave Taylor the moment to finish what she'd started. It was an incredibly kind gesture, but the damage was done. The next day, the incident was everywhere. "I'ma let you finish" became a meme. People made jokes. Some defended Taylor. Some agreed with Kanye. The internet debated whether Taylor had deserved to win in the first place, and Taylor, 19 years old, had to watch the most embarrassing moment of her life replayed over and over and over. She didn't do interviews for weeks, didn't make public appearances. She was hurt, humiliated, and questioning everything. Did she deserve her success? Did people really think she wasn't good enough? Had she only won because of popularity rather than merit? Those questions haunted her through the fall of 2009, and they were still there in January 2010 when the Grammy nominations were announced. Fearless, Taylor's second album, was nominated for Album of the Year, the biggest award in music, the Grammy that says this is the best album released this year, period. Not just country, not just pop, the best album, full stop. Taylor was nominated alongside Beyoncé's I Am Sasha Fierce, Lady Gaga's The Fame, the Black Eyed Peas' The End, and Dave Matthews Band's Big Whiskey and the Gru Grux King. These were massive artists. Beyoncé was one of the biggest stars in the world. Lady Gaga was having a breakthrough year. The Black Eyed Peas were dominating pop radio. Dave Matthews Band was a veteran act with decades of credibility. And then there was Taylor Swift, 20 years old, a country artist trying to cross over, and only 4 months removed from Kanye West telling the world she didn't deserve her awards. If Taylor won Album of the Year, she'd make history. She'd be the youngest person ever to win that award, but that was a big if. Most people assumed Beyoncé would win, Or maybe Lady Gaga. Taylor was just honored to be nominated. The weeks leading up to the Grammys were surreal for Taylor. She was still processing the VMA incident, still dealing with the memes, the jokes, the people who thought Kanye was right. And now she was preparing to sit in an audience with Beyoncé, the person Kanye had said deserved Taylor's award, and pretend everything was fine. Taylor didn't expect to win. She'd prepared a speech, just in case, but she genuinely thought one of the other nominees would take it. Album of the Year was for established artists, veterans, people with long careers and undeniable credibility, not 20-year-old country singers. January 31st, 2010, the Grammy Awards at the Staples Center in Los Angeles. Taylor wore a gold-beaded dress. She performed "Today Was a Fairy Tale" and "You Belong With Me" earlier in the show. Now she was sitting in the audience, watching the rest of the ceremony, trying not to think about the fact that Album of the Year was coming up. The presenters came out, Quentin Tarantino and Kristen Bell. They listed the nominees, showed clips of each album. The cameras cut to each nominee's face. Beyoncé looked composed. Lady Gaga looked excited. The Black Eyed Peas looked confident. Dave Matthews looked honored to be there. And Taylor looked terrified. Quentin Tarantino opened the envelope, paused, and said 3 words: "Fearless." Taylor Swift. For a second, Taylor didn't move. She looked shocked, like she couldn't believe what she'd just heard. The cameras were on her. Everyone was staring. And then it hit her. She'd won. She'd won Album of the Year. At 20 years old. She'd just made history. The youngest person ever to win Album of the Year. Joni Mitchell had been 30 when she won. Barbra Streisand was 27. Alicia Keys was 24. And now Taylor Swift, at 20, had just broken the record. Taylor stood up, hugged her mom, and walked to the stage. She was crying. Not the devastated crying from backstage at the VMAs. Happy crying. Overwhelmed crying. "I can't believe this is happening." Crying. On stage, holding the Grammy, Taylor gave her acceptance speech, and it was perfect. Not rehearsed perfect, real perfect, emotional perfect. "I just always wondered what it would be like to maybe win one of these one day," she said, echoing the words she'd started to say at the VMAs before being interrupted. "But I never actually thought it would happen. This is for my dad, who told me to never give up. And for my mum, you're my best friend. And to all the fans who deserve this, thank you so much." Simple. Genuine. Gracious. No mention of the VMAs. No mention of Kanye. Just gratitude. But everyone watching knew what this meant. 4 months ago, Taylor had been humiliated on live television, told she didn't deserve her success, and now she was holding the Grammy for Album of the Year, the most prestigious award in music, at 20 years old, making history. The vindication was overwhelming, not just because she'd won, but because she'd proven that Kanye's interruption, his assertion that she didn't deserve recognition, was wrong. Definitively, completely. The Recording Academy, which includes thousands of music industry professionals, had voted Fearless the best album of the year. Not just a popularity contest, not just fan votes, industry recognition. Backstage after her win, reporters asked Taylor how it felt. She kept saying she couldn't believe it, that it was surreal, that she was so honored. She was gracious about her competitors, especially Beyoncé. She didn't bring up the VMAs. She stayed classy, but you could see in her eyes what this meant. This wasn't just an award, this was proof. Proof that she belonged, proof that she'd earned her success, proof that she was good enough. The next day, the headlines weren't about another humiliation. They were about history. Taylor Swift becomes Youngest Album of the Year winner. Fearless takes top Grammy. Taylor Swift makes history at 20. The narrative had shifted. 4 months earlier, Taylor had been the girl Kanye interrupted. Now she was the Youngest Album of the Year winner in Grammy history. The girl who'd gone from humiliation to making history in 120 days. But the significance went deeper than just the record. Album of the Year is the Grammy that says you're not just successful, you're artistically credible. It's not about singles or sales, it's about the body of work. The album is a complete artistic statement, and the industry had said Taylor's work was the best of the year. For someone who'd spent 4 months questioning whether she deserved her success, this validation was everything. Years later, Taylor would talk about that Grammy win as one of the most meaningful moments of her career. Not just because she made history, but because of the timing, because it came when she needed it most, when she was doubting herself, when the world was questioning whether she was the real deal or just a popular artist who'd gotten lucky. The Grammys answered that question, and the answer was, she's the real deal. The journey from the VMAs to the Grammys, from humiliation to history, happened in 4 months, 120 days, from 19 to 20 years old, from questioning everything to making history. On September 13, 2009, Taylor Swift had the worst moment of her young career. She was humiliated on live television. Her acceptance speech was interrupted. She was told she didn't deserve her award, and millions of people watched it happen. On January 31, 2010, Taylor Swift had one of the best moments of her young career. She won Album of the Year. She became the youngest person ever to win that award. She made history, and she proved that 4 months earlier, Kanye West had been wrong. The vindication wasn't about revenge. Taylor never responded to Kanye with anger or attacks. She didn't write a diss track. She didn't trash him in interviews. She just kept working, kept writing songs, kept performing, and let her work speak for itself. And when the Recording Academy voted, they said her work was the best of the year. That was the response that mattered, not what she said, what she'd done. At 20 years old, Taylor Swift learned something that would shape the rest of her career. The best response to people who say you don't deserve your success is to keep succeeding. The best answer to humiliation is achievement. The best vindication is making history. She could have let the VMA incident define her, could have retreated, quit, believed the people who said she wasn't good enough. Instead, she went to the Grammys 4 months later and became the youngest Album of the Year winner ever. That's not just a comeback story. That's a "I'm going to prove you so wrong that history remembers it" story. Today, when people talk about Taylor Swift's career, the VMA incident is often mentioned, but it's always followed by the Grammy win. The humiliation is part of the story, but so is the historic vindication that came 4 months later. From 19 to 20, from humiliation to history, from she doesn't deserve it to youngest Album of the Year winner ever. In 4 months, Taylor Swift transformed the narrative. She didn't just win an award, she made history. She proved every doubter wrong. She showed that the girl they tried to diminish was actually making history they'd have to acknowledge. And she did it with grace. No anger, no revenge, just excellence, just achievement, just becoming the youngest person to ever win music's biggest award. 4 months after the worst moment of her career, Taylor Swift had the best, and she earned every second of it. At 20 years old, holding that Grammy, Taylor Swift wasn't just a winner. She was the youngest Album of the Year winner in history, a record that still stands, a moment that proved humiliation doesn't have the last word. Achievement does, history does, and on January 30, 2010, Taylor Swift made both.